Good morning, everyone. It is August 12th of 24. Um, had a good morning. I haven't been on my bike for about 6 weeks exercising, and since I worked out my knee issues, I finally got the motivation to, excuse me, get back on my bike. It felt good. I did my sit-ups on the exercise ball, and then I did the TED Talk and then rode my bike, watched an interview on Emma's channel, the Imagination Podcast, listened to Sfali talk about Alice in Wonderland programming. And I'll tell you, it matched up with where I'm at right now. And it really, uh, I got my programming now. I'm pretty sure. I thought there's no way I've got this Jesuit Alice in Wonderland programming, but I do. It's just under different words and rituals. So that was really cool. That felt good. Get that under my belt and understand that. Um, so let me just get into the nitty gritty here with this journal entry. This entry is from February 5th of 24. It says years ago in Dallas, around when I had the dream about Jesus on that rooftop of that church, I had a nightmare. And when I woke up, I sketched what I saw. It was a Birdman, is what I wrote. The person with a huge beak and a black cape. And let me see if I can show this. I had the whole body sketched out, but like I said in previous talks, I threw it away, but I remember it vividly because I had looked at it, I don't know, 10 or 20 times. I thought it very strange. I had never seen such a thing, so I thought. Years after that, I happened to see it on TV or on the web. Now, this is during the time frame when I was transcribing for Alan Watt on the cuttingthroughthematrix.com website. It was a mask used during the plague of 1350 by doctors. They put herbs in the beak for protection. I realized this is what was in my dream. I thought I must have seen it and stored it subconsciously, and thus my dream. Last night, I remembered that the man who vetted me in the library and put spells on me later was dressed with this mask and a special robe. They were reddish tint and were leather. He presided over the two rituals for me when I was 3 years old. Wow, I forgot all about that till right now. Good thing I journaled it. I knew it was him because I saw his hands, the same hands. So I wasn't so scared. It was a human. So I thought. I know now he was perfectly possessed. He took off super fast when Jesus arrived. Wow, I completely forgot all this. They all avoided me after Jesus visited, not visited, but whatever. You have to forgive me. I have a part that likes to smoke. Put this out. I forgot I had it lit. Try not to smoke while I'm doing this. So this beak mask was also present. A few of them. When I was in the cellar with Whitey and he raped me, I think 6 of them, plus Whitey and Irene. That also was a gang rape. I also had electric wires placed on my genitals and was shocked a few times. Forgot about that too. On the second or third trip, Mom was cooking, I was drugged mildly. I remember Whitey saying they had to hurry, that my mom would be getting suspicious and Jolly couldn't distract her forever. Jolly was his daughter. So now I'm going to trip number 1. My mom is in town. That's right. His wife got her and Marianne to go to town. They all ejaculated onto my skin and rubbed it in, Whitey on my face. There was also blood, plus Whitey threw compost on it and smeared it around. Then he took Polaroids. My goodness, I forgot all about this. He had to send one to Grandma. It was her revenge and payback for me vomiting on her. He had to defile me as much as possible. Plus, I vomited on myself after the shocks. This was on my face and chest as well. This was when Dad had to wash me up and Mom was stuck in town. I think this beak mask was particular to this coven for the men. The size of the beak reflected their rank. Higher rank, larger beak. Plus, red ones showed leadership and only one per group. At various times, these people would threaten to skin/kill Mom and or Angie and Mary, and said Dad would help do it. So I had to obey. Funny, I have a line here indicating a different train of thought. Funny, Mom wound up trauma bonded. I wound up trauma bonded to Mom instead of Dad and Grandma due to the fact that Jesus scared them off when I was being inducted in that ritual or initiated, I guess. Angie and Mary cleaned me up, but they were too scared and confused to be kind. Excuse me. It was when I ran out to Mom and she held and consoled me that I got the post trauma love part thanks to Jesus. And then here's another train of thought. I think the reason I could not tolerate itching on my legs, mostly and body, and I scratched until I bled was from the electric currents that ran up and down my legs. An itch would trigger that, and I would have to make it stop. Only ripping the skin open stopped it. Then I only felt the sores, not the tingle or itch. Yeah, I am still, to this day, I can't tolerate itchy skin or a mosquito bite or whatever. I tend to rip it open, but now it's not, these huge scratch marks. It's smaller and less intense. So it's working itself out. And I know that with this work that I'm doing, it will probably stop. Last night I asked Jesus to cast out the demons from that. And yeah, this is back when I was still thinking that casting out demons was going to be the solution. And it did help in some ways. I think my parts felt that I was more committed and I was willing to do whatever it took to help myself, help them. Remember, I'm sorry about this lighting. I can't bear to close the curtain because I'll be sitting in the dark and it's 10 o'clock in the morning. And anyway, so last night I asked Jesus to cast out the demons from that. And it's funny because when I did that, it looked like the room, it didn't fill up physically, but like ethereal. I could sense there was like a fog, a fugue, this dizzy haze, drugged, kind of all fused together like this weird air in my room. It took about an hour. I was very tired. I repeated over and over the casting out aloud and in my head until I fell asleep. And so here's another train of thought. I believe that because I was a Leo and named Diana, and because I was one of three girls, her grandchildren, that she chose me to succeed her, although she had much disdain for my dad. Plus, it was hard for her due to us only coming there one time per year, so she had to squeeze in a lot. I think this is why I chose Chris for my mate, my husband. He is very powerful. This was my first impression of him. He was also in the military, in infantry. So I knew he could protect me, albeit on a subconscious level. I'm in my subconscious level. I knew that he could protect me. I was slated to be mated to a man in the coven or lodge. I was told this, and that I would replace Grandma. It was our family heritage, perhaps a cousin they were going to mate me with. Because Mom took us away from Dad, that didn't happen. Thus, I was subconsciously fearful and needed Chris. I still do. And then my memories went back after I wrote that. I said, I met the boy I was to be mated to. He was a few years older than me. He didn't like me. His eyes were mean. He didn't think I was evil enough for him. I was happy not to live there in Indiana. He was one of the people who raped me slash us in the Masonic rituals. He did the rounds with the other men. The men were mostly relatives, uncles, cousins, dad, grandpa, plus a few men from the lodge. Oh, here we go. And this is a totally different line of thought now. These are my journals. And this is all this same night. In about October, I called Ruth. Now, Ruth is my father's second wife after my mom divorced him. I called her to get my cousin Cheryl's number, a cousin on my dad's side. She was a part of the rituals as well. I wanted to talk to her about all of this. Ruth gave me Dennis's number, dad's business partner, but not Cheryl's. And I'm going to interject here as well. I've talked to my sister about getting Cheryl's phone number, and she's, well, at first she told me she had it. And then when I asked for it a year or two later, oh, she doesn't have it. And then months after that, she told me she's in contact with her, or that they're Facebook friends. I don't know that they actually talk to each other. And I asked her, I said, well, could you send her a message and tell her I'd like to speak with her, that I just was interested in our family history. And, dad and all those, his brothers and parents are dead. And she's like, yeah, yes. And she never did. So nobody's giving me Cheryl's phone number. Since then, it occurred to me that Cheryl might not be a good guy. She could still be in the coven and active. I thought since Ruth didn't send it to me that it's just as well. I really just wanted confirmation of all of this, but my memory is enough. With Dennis, too. With Dennis, this is my dad's business partner. I don't want him to have to dig up all the nasty stuff of dad's life. I know dad was abused as well. And I put on here worse than Angie and Mary. But I now know that he was abused by his parents, but it wasn't, rape and the SRA torture. He was abused in the fashion that would create a perpetrator, in that he was encouraged to be nasty, encouraged to be mean and rude, and things that would build up his ego and reduce his conscience. Or it's okay to lie, cheat, steal, and whatever to get ahead. So back in what is this, February here, I thought, he was hurt people, and the only way my dad could have been a perpetrator was because he was abused as well. And I've since learned that no, that's not true. Perpetrators are trained to become perpetrators. And if they're not trained, they have just simply chosen to shut off their conscience, watch massive pornography, let their ego build and build and build, and it becomes all about themselves, and then it goes from there. The stuff that John Uhler talks about in Emma's podcasts. So this is still about my dad. He was happy to stay at the lower levels of the lodge. I think this is how he pushed back on his mom and dad, and why they had disdain for him. He wasn't evil enough. And then another train of thought. I recall in Iowa, after the divorce in the farmhouse, I used to yell in my sleep. Yeah, after mom divorced dad, we moved to Iowa and lived with her parents, who were in a farmhouse. And then we rented the farmhouse just, a quarter mile down the gravel road. And so we were in a farmhouse as well. I used to yell in my sleep. Mom would come check on me, and I was 11 years old now. She would tell me that I don't have to think about those things anymore and try to forget them. She said, then she'd put me back to sleep with a caress on my head. And after this, I put, Mom was not very affectionate. As a teen, I once laid my head on her lap on the couch. I needed her to hold me. After about 30 seconds, she said it was too hot and to get up. I remember feeling rejected and not consoled. And so that's that entry. And I wish this had a counter on it so I know how long it went. But should I go on to the next one? Yeah, I think I will go on to the next entry because this will help you understand why my mom was not very affectionate. And this is dated February 10th of 24. Last night I recalled a black mass. I started off with the image of seeing a small child, 3 or 4 years old, on a spit over a very large and hot bonfire. His skin was dripping / melting off of him. I'm sorry this is so graphic. And the reason that this memory came up, I was watching one of Emma's, was it one of Emma's? No, it was before I ran into the Imagination podcast, but I was listening to, it was a woman in Australia and she has a video. It's like a 2-hour video. I wish I could remember her name. But she was talking about how in one of her rituals, they had put, how they had burned human bodies. And I was riding my bike. It was in the morning time, and I'm listening to this talk. And as she's talking about that, an image popped in my head. And I thought, well, how on earth would I know what that looks like? She's talking about her thing. I'm not imagining it. I don't watch horror movies. And the thought just stuck in my head, how on earth do I know what that looks like? I couldn't shake that thought, and thank goodness I didn't brush it off as, oh, I must have seen it in a movie because I don't watch movies like that. So late after I got done, actually, I should bring that picture up. Let me share here. After I got done riding my bike, I sat down and drew a sketch. Journal. Oh, you know what? I think I will do it through something else. Sorry, because it's hard for me to find the sketches that way, but Arts maps, and I'll go to, this is one of my earlier maps. I decided to put it on a PowerPoint. And as I did that, this is one of my early PowerPoints. Oh shit, but obviously, because I don't have any pages here. So let me quickly, at some point I decided to put pages in. Oh, darn. And different parts, give them like a, what you want to call this. I call this their bio and their image. And this was my first split, but that seeing that body being burned and knowing what human skin looks like when it's burning, I remembered this part, and her name is Blue. I'm going to go later here because I'm trying to show you the sketch that I made. And later on, I put, here it is, after she was created in this set. Oh, shoot, this is the wrong one too. I'm so sorry. All of my parts want to say hello. Okay, so where are you? It is, yes, these are all my parts. And at a certain point, I started adding my journal entries. Gosh darn it. I don't have it in here. Dang it. So anyhow, you've gotten to see some evolutions of my maps, which went from that 1 page to now 3 pages. And I knew it was incomplete, but that things had happened. So I'll get out of there. A little sneak peek. I guess I'll just go back to the journal sketches. It's one of the very first. Blue, oh, okay, Blue, Black, Mass, and Rocky. And this is when I was sending my handwritten journals to my counselor. I think, is this it? No. Darn it. Shoot. I am so sorry. I'm taking you through my goose chase here. Well, anyhow, I will get out of there. Come back to this. Anyway, I drew a sketch, and it was of this black mass. So last night I recalled a black mass. I started off with the image of seeing a small child, 3 or 4 years old, on a spit over a very large and hot bonfire. His skin was dripping and melting off of him. Then I heard his screams before he died. Then I heard many children's screams. I looked to my right, and there were 9 more fires, each one with a child, ranging from newborn to 6 or 7 years old, all screaming. Then I looked to my left, and there were 3 more fires with children being burned alive, 13 in total. It began with the final trip to Grandma and Grandpa's house in Indiana. I was about to be 6 years old. Their house was dark and musty, dusty, cluttered. The refrigerator had spoiled food in it. Mom was really uncomfortable there. Me, Angie, and Mary were put on mattresses on the floor in a small room. We shared one large suitcase. It was on the floor, too. It's a pretty empty room. It was bare. Mom spent a lot of the day trying to throw away trash and straighten things up. Grandma gave her grief about it. It's not your house, leave it alone, etc. But Mom persisted. And I'm the same way. I can't stand that. After dinner, Grandma gave Mom a hard time because Mom was going to throw out a single spoonful of leftover corn, a spoonful, like a tablespoon. Grandma insisted Mom save it. Mom looked at her with total confusion, but did it. She put it in that nasty refrigerator. Oh, here's the sketch. After dinner, Mom was quite tired. She went to bed early with us. I think we were all drugged. We were all very groggy after dinner. This was about 7 or 8 p.m. At about 11 p.m., we were woken up by Grandma. We had to get up. Dad had a surprise for us. She had us undress from pajamas and be naked and put on our robes. I got a rock in my gut. I knew the robes meant rituals and ceremonies. Angie and Mary seemed okay, almost excited. I was scared. As we went downstairs, we saw Mom going too. Her eyes were sleepy, glassy. She didn't talk. We all followed Grandma like ducks. Outside, across a field into some woods, then to the lakefront. There were a bunch of fires, very large. There was music. Dad and Grandpa were at the center, the altar. They had speakers and a microphone. Grandpa told everyone to take their places. There were lots of people in robes and some with masks. It's white and red and black. There were beaks and no beaks. And this is just a very rudimentary sketch. I later did another one with colored pencils, but these are all the bonfires and the altar, speakers and torches. This is a river back here. I kept looking at Mom. She was not there. Her eyes were vacant. The children were walked in by 2 men, each holding the end of the spits. The children are hogtied and hanging. I drew a little sketch of that as well, right there. Small boys to carry babies, teens and men to carry larger children. Then the witches, then to each witches brought in the dupes, D-U-P-E-S. These were abducted teens and women. Mom was a dupe. They were made to lie on their backs on the ground tied to a stake. I cried for my mama. I was slapped, told to be silent, to swallow it. swallowed the tears in fear. The men put the children over the fires, the ones that they were carrying in. All screaming, all the screaming began. I called for Mama again, another smack. I saw the skin start to fall off the small children on the fire by Mom. Excuse me. All right, now I'm swallowing it so I can talk about it. I saw the skin start to fall off the small child on the fire by Mom. Now I can't see. I saw Mom's hair get embers on it and burn. She moved and moaned. Now, what they did with these dupes is they had the bonfire and they laid the dupe underneath. They tied their arms and legs with a stake into the sand. They were laid on a pentagram. Well, not really a pentagram, but like a four-pointed star. And as you laid the person on there, their head made the fifth of the point of the star. And their arms and legs were tied to the points. And as they were lying there, my mom could look up and see that baby being burned to death. Okay. And so her head was close to the fire and embers burned. She moved and moaned. After a short while, the cries stopped. The children were dead. The skin was off and the bodies were charred. The men moved the spit and bodies over top of the dupes. All of this in concert to the incantations and instructions of Grandpa and the leader. The leader was that bony, oh, I forgot about this too. The leader was that bony man in the library that put the spell on me. This was a day or two later. It was a full moon and on or near the summer solstice. The men and boys then cut open from neck to groin the charred children. Their blood flowed onto the dupes below my mother and these 12 other people. It was moved so as to cover the dupe. Mama was in a trance. She was covered in blood. You have to forgive me. This is one of my hardest memories. Then there was a free-for-all. The robes were thrown off and an orgy began. All of them used the blood on the dupes to smear from them and the ground onto themselves and then have sex. Each group of men moved from dupe to dupe, raping them, men and women with men and women, some with sticks, staffs, etc., bottles, whatever. Dad raped Mom first and moved on. Angie and Mary were doing the witch dance with the adult witches. Also, then they were raped. They just weren't tied down. My cousin that I was selected to marry later, and we would replace Grandma and Grandpa, took me to the ground and raped me. After he got up and dragged me to the edge of the tree line to give him fellatio. I was not enthusiastic. I was looking at Mom being raped. He got mad and fed up. He pushed me to the ground and said I should be excited and happy to please him. He didn't think I was evil enough for him or to be in line for Grandma's spot, that I was a joke. He was my master. I just looked at Mom. He huffed off after slapping my face. I realized I was on my own, on the edge of the madness. I got my robe over me and slowly crawled to the brush. Then I hid in the thick brush. I scratched myself up getting in there. Then I made sure no skin showed in the moonlight and I hid in those bushes. Another three people rubbing blood all over each other and orgying came close to me at the bush. I saw the mask, white, just 2 feet away. I was freaked I would be discovered, but they were too distracted and busy to see me. I was frozen still and barely breathing. God said to be still. I was. Then they moved off after a while. No one else came near. My attention was on Mom. She was she was raped for hours. I kept trying to figure out how to rescue her. I had to find and get a knife to cut her free. I had to wait for no one to see me do it, but that never came. There were masons and witches all over all the time. I waited and waited, so still and quiet. There were lots of incantations and odd languages spoken. Blood drank and smeared all over. I saw lots of them eat parts of the charred children. And done like it was just like a leg of chicken, but it was an arm or a leg of a child. I almost puked. I swallowed it to be quiet. There was a point when the head mason bony guy was looking for me. He was right in front of me, 20 to 30 feet away. He didn't see me. And I forgot all about this too. He hollered out that this was happening to her because of me. I was doing this to her. I was to blame because I was hiding. I still hid. I barely breathed. After a while, they moved off to look elsewhere. God hid me. They should have seen me, but they didn't. God covered me. I was very torn for years about the guilt over this, but also knew it was a lie. Very, very much doublethink. That this was my fault, but seeing the others, I knew it would have happened anyway. As dawn approached, the tide moved up the shore. The fires went out and washed away. The head mason and witches gathered their equipment and took to their cars. The dupes were released from their stakes. I'll just interject here that I realized later that two of these dupes were wives of masons who were not cult members, that this was a way of traumatizing them and instilling terror programming into them. But the other 11 people were abducted teenagers and children. The dupes were released from their stakes. The water was coming up to Mama's head. I was scared she would drown. I ran to her and put my arm around her. I tried to wake her. She was still out of it. She had burns on her scalp. Grandma saw and snatched me up. They got Mom up too. We were all walked to the lake to clean up. Once rinsed, we put robes back on and walked back to the house and slept. And I'm remembering too, in this memory, I don't know if there were two times this happened or one, because in one memory, I remember we walked through the forest, and another memory, I remember we drove in a van. So the next day, Mom was herself, but very much in pain and sick. Grandma convinced her it was just a really bad menstrual cycle and flew on top of it. Mom was in bed for 2 days. She was gaslighted all the time. We left after that. We never went back there. She refused, but could not say why. She just said no more, that we're never going back there. So I believe she had amnesia. She split and had amnesia, but somewhere inside of her, she knew we're not going back there. Mom was obsessed with getting me, Angie, and Mary baptized after that. Enrolled us in Sunday school. I was kicked out. Mom taught me at home. After a few weeks, she baptized me in our bathtub. Oh my God, I forgot about that. I've baptized 5 times now. Oh my goodness. Oh, and I put on here twice just to be sure over 2 Sundays. So that's 6 times. Unbelievable. I shouldn't say unbelievable because it is believable to me now. I'm gobsmacked. I forgot about this. Angie and Mary got baptized at church the next Sunday. I've got to tell my counselor this. Holy cow. Mom relaxed a bit after that, but she did start working out all the time. I have a picture of her at about 30, and she was very fit. She worked out for the rest of her life, had a gym membership for 2 years before she died, and she died 4 days before her 80th birthday. So my mom took that experience, baptized us, and started building up her body, getting strong physically. And if you were to ask her why, I don't think she could have been able to tell you, but that's what she did. I'm glad I got to help her at 77 when her heart got weak in Canada. I spent 12 weeks with her. I loved her, and that time we had together. And I didn't remember any of this then. We really bonded during those 12 weeks. And that was 2020 in the COVID insanity. I went there September, October, November. I cried a lot last night, especially about not being able to help Mom. Then I saw her. I forgot about this too. I'm so sorry. I can't see through my glasses when I'm teared up. Especially about not being able to help Mom. Then I saw her. She was radiant and had a body full of light. She told me she was okay now. She was with God. She held me and caressed my hair. She held my hand and kissed me. Then after I quieted, she said she had to go, but that I had to tell the world what happened. I was debating telling Melissa and to have an interview. And that's the interview that I post to my show notes because at the time I wasn't. I knew I was having these memories, but I didn't know how to handle it. I was debating telling Melissa to have an interview, but now I know I must. I am a witness, and the world must know. Mom, Angie, and Mary never recalled any of it consciously, but Mom did a lot of things to help us, trusting only her intuition, not her memory. The baptisms, never going back to Grandma and Grandpa's house, divorcing Dad. She knew, but then she forgot. Only I remembered. They believe me, but don't remember their abuse. At least they never invalidated me. So that's why, excuse me, my mother was not very affectionate later after that experience. A part of her shut down. a part of her knew that dad had control of us, that he was turning us against her. But deep down inside of her, even after all that trauma and the amnesia in her, she still got us baptized. She refused to go back to Grandma and Grandpa's house. She didn't care how much my dad turned into a, whatever domestic violence they had with each other. She never took us back there. She divorced him. She took us away. But that experience had changed her like it would anybody. She she didn't stop being loving, but she couldn't be physically close anymore. And so I just thank God, not thank God, but when her heart, she had a problem in Canada with her heart. She couldn't even lay down to sleep. She called me to tell me, and I flew up there a day later. Anyway, everything worked out okay with it, but we had 12 weeks together and I got to care for her. I cooked for her, I cleaned for her. When we walked in the store going shopping, I mean, I remember she couldn't even carry a pint of milk. I did everything for her until she got stronger. So God gave me that time to rescue her then. I'm so sorry. And I hope that all of you out there that have similar experiences, that God grants you the time to have that full circle moment. Because he gave it to me, and I'm just so grateful. And anyway, my mom went to live with my sister in Arizona, and COVID time, I had mom convinced no shots, none of it. But once she went and lived with my sister, the brainwashing kicked in for both of them, and they both got 4 shots. And they knew how against it I was. They didn't even tell me. I lost my mind when I found out mom had 2. And after she passed away, I was going through her things and found her little shot card, whatever they called it. She had 4 effing shots, 4 of them. That last couple of years, she had built her body back up to such strength that she was working out an hour every morning. Had membership to a gym and was using the weight machine, and she was 80. She was strong. That effing shot killed her. I know it did. I hope none of you out there have it. And if you do, I pray that God cleanse and protect your body. I'm just going to interject here. Look up a Substack account called Dr. William Makis. He has excellent therapy for that. He recommends fasting, 3-day fasts. It purges a lot of the toxins from it. So anyway, I'll get off that. Wow, I wasn't expecting all this. So thank you for listening. Thank you for coming along on my journey. I pray, Jesus, God protect you, watch over you, send you guardian angels of protection and comfort. I ask God that he help you do the work to get you to the deepest levels, find all of your parts, work them out safely. If you have perpetrators around you, that you can get out, get away, escape, find safety so that you can work on healing. God bless you all, and I'll see you next time. Bye.